Welcome to Relevant Christianity. I'm Wayne Blakely. Appreciate you coming back. As you've known from the beginning of this podcast, I want to cover multiple topics while the focus has been largely on LGBT issues. It's designed to be a useful agent for someone who is walking with Christ in the world today. And there's lots of challenges that come along the way because the world is ever changing, and the enemy sure displays his anger at anyone who is seeking to serve God. Um, One of my memories from living in Washington before I moved to Tennessee was when I got baptized. That was in 2009. And I came back to a large church body, and I got familiar with a lady, Marella Rudebaugh, and her husband, Mark. And Marella was involved a lot with the worship coordination at the church there. And she was making sure that everyone was where they were supposed to be when they were supposed to be. And that's certainly not something that's particularly easy. But she also had close in tow her husband and three children. She's very dedicated. Both Mark and Marella are dedicated to raising their children with a strong foundation in Jesus Christ. As you walk in life, you never know what's in your pathway. We really don't know from one day to the next what we're going to run into. Morella also, as working as a working mother, was working for one of the denominational headquarters in the union office as an administrative assistant. And at a particular point in time, something began to change. And this podcast today is not so much on theological discussions or rights and wrongs, but in life's pathways, we physically experience changes in our lives. I know for me, as I'm getting older, there's lots of things I've become more aware of today than I did when I was 30, that's for certain. But I want to introduce to you Marella and her husband, Mark, today. And I'm really grateful that they have come on the program. And Marella, you were working, enjoying life with your family, and then what happens?
Well, I started to notice a what's called an aura, which I've had since I was a kid. Actually, it would start as just this small um, blank spot. I guess if you Googled aura, you would find a good representation of it. But it would start just kind of as a small dot, and then it would get bigger and bigger and bigger until it was covering my vision, and then it would go away. So it didn't last very long. When but so after time, I, like I said, I think a year ago, I started noticing that this was happening more often, and I jumped on a Facebook group and that I had found, and it's a common thing, although most people haven't heard about it. And I talked to them about it and asked them some questions,
Hmm.
and told them that this was happening multiple times a day now. And they said that's not normal. Theirs
Hmm.
happens every so often, but not like that. So I went from there, and we went to a doctor who sent us kind of everywhere. We ended up
You,
they ended up doing a what did they diagnose it as?
He
Uh,
did an MRI and came up with a grade one glio first.
you know, and then they did a surgery to just to take some of it. They noticed that there was most of it. It was not something that they could um, do anything about as far as surgery goes.
Mhm. I
But
remember in the early when you first began telling about it on Facebook, and I have to say that I really appreciate your transparency on this because there Facebook is certainly a very vulnerable place to be, but when you have lots and lots of friends, lots of people go through all kinds of things, and you have shared your story right from the beginning, and I've been blessed and known how to pray for you, and I know other people have known how to pray as well. But I remember in the early diagnosing stages, it seemed like one doctor would say one thing, and then maybe another doctor said something slightly different, and I could tell the frustration of that. Can you share a little bit of what that was like?
Yeah, because the first doctor said it was a kind of something that would go away, not go away. It's something that I would have to live with, but it wasn't something that would take my life. It was
Right,
something that would
right.
just, yeah. So then that's
So it
the
wasn't, it was like, oh, well, this is awful, but I'll make do.
right, right, exactly. But then another diagnosis came in from somebody, and this is something that Mark remembers, but I didn't. I thought we were done, we were good, and then we got this other doctor in California who was. They told me that he was like the go-to, and he knows what he's talking about. So he came back and told us that this is a level 4, which is basically stage 4. They call it level 4 um, in brain cancer.
Glioblastoma.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so level 4, stage 4 cancer. So that was a
So you
big shock.
get that news, and what do you do with that information?
Um, well, Mark, what did we do with it?
You were still working, right?
Yes, I
Hmm.
was I was still working. It was helpful to have a distraction.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't really know what to do at that point. We got just in contact with the doctors, with the cancer doctor,
Hmm.
who was a good person. She helped a lot, but she wasn't a what's it called, specifically for that cancer. She was just a general general cancer. So we tried to get in touch with the expert, and he kind of, I don't want to say he blew us off, but it kind of felt like it. Um, and so we kind of went back to the general cancer doctor, and talked to her a bit about what we needed to do. And
And you had some days where it presented itself a little more exacerbated than other days. So I would imagine that some days you were like, oh, maybe this is okay. I can deal with this. And then on another day, you're thinking, oh, I don't know. This is
yeah,
really
no,
challenging.
no, actually, it was happening every at that point. It was happening every
2 minutes.
minute.
Yeah,
Oh,
about
wow.
every 2 minutes she would get seizures, and
Yeah,
it
and
was
I
very, yeah.
didn't know they were seizures at the time, but yeah, every minute to two
Just
minutes,
constant.
constant, and it was awful.
And not even getting like a day of reprieve.
Yeah, no, my day of reprieve was sleep,
Oh, my
and
goodness.
honestly, the surgery that they did was reprieve, and I was looking forward to just getting a break from it,
Right,
just from
right.
the surgery, which just sounds ridiculous.
But you were actually, put me out and let me sleep and have peace.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
So Wayne, I could probably help describe some of the reasons so the audience, people who watch this and understand her mannerisms that she's coming through is
yes, please.
different. It's more visual seizures. She's not having the physical seizures that you would think of. She can see, but she can't read. And she also has some short-term memory loss. So, as they're watching her talk, there's times that she might struggle, and that's part of the faith part. The hit when we got from the doctor, hey,
Yes.
this is a grade 4. This is a much more, now we're in a terminal sense, and that's a devastating impact. And
Yes.
she's already outlived the doctors, Um,
So with that news, you come home to your family, and so you were given a terminal diagnosis,
Yes, they told me it would a year.
and what do you come home and say to your kids
We didn't really say anything. We don't. I mean, I
at that time? Or
the the times when we did talk about it were when people would ask,
Mhm.
because, like you said, I was really open to sharing on Facebook, but the kids would hear things. At first, we weren't really that transparent with them, but then, as because of course, we don't want to terrify our children, but and we were given advice that we just kind of let them be them and not have to deal with this thing. Um,
So do you feel, were you, from physiologically, did you feel disoriented then? Like if you get up to walk or move about, was this something that just made you constantly feel ill at ease?
um, I don't know that that might be a question for Mark to answer really, because he saw what was happening, but I didn't really feel it was actually more the 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 pills. They see this as part of it because I can't think of the words.
Mhm,
The
mhm.
Was it prescriptions
yeah,
that they gave me that were making me feel just, I was sleeping all the time, that sort of thing. So um I'm sorry, what was the full question?
About feeling disoriented, like if you're trying to operate on a day-to-day basis, where did you, c- could you go into the kitchen and cook, or could you, I mean, what was the progression and how did it affect you physiologically?
Yeah, I mean, you just saw some of that disorientation. Get
Hmm, hmm.
I get sort of not really confused.
Distracted.
Just yeah, I get distracted and I can't remember what I need to say.
Yeah.
So as far as everyday stuff, I mean, that was fine. So in a way, I couldn't. It was sort of like which cupboard is the food. Which cupboard do I need to grab cereal, that sort of thing. And then people say, oh well, I have trouble finding things too, or I have my memory, I forget that stuff too. And although it's completely well meaning and I really
Right.
appreciate it.
Maybe minimalizing it a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I didn't take it that way,
Yeah.
because I know it's
We're trying to
meant
be
well. And
helpful. Yeah.
yeah, and they're trying to be helpful, and I really appreciate that, but it's nothing like that.
Do you have a point then where you sit down and spell out the reality of things to the children or to the family?
We I don't know. I don't think we tried to talk to them about it and then they would pass it off.
Mhm, mhm.
We actually did more recently try to have a conversation with them, and we finished our conversation or our talk or to them sort of, and then they're like, oh well, what can we do over
Yeah.
in this spot for something else. So they tried to change the subject really quickly.
Yeah. It's a heavy confrontation in their minds to even
Yeah,
fathom, I'm sure.
yeah, right.
But they are there, as I'm sure Mark constantly is too. They are checking in with you. What can I do for you? Do you need something?
Yeah, well, my youngest was in here helping me set up the podcast. I mean, he
Yeah.
was really trying to be helpful, but yeah, there's also issues with with behavior, um, with with sneaking things, so it's not, yeah, there's
Yeah.
things that are concerning.
I think
When,
they're trying to find their own coping mechanisms
yeah.
as well. And I mean, I've had good conversations with them one on one, and praising them when they do good things, trying to be understanding when things are, if they're not quite, I think they have a lot of normal teenage. We have two teenagers and one almost.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of their stuff is fairly normal teenage, but then you add this extra level of, whoa, heaviness to life. And I think they do pretty well for the most part. But yeah, we have good days and bad days as a family.
Mhm.
And it's a struggle sometimes to, but I want to praise them for, Lila is the oldest and she's
Yeah.
really stepped up in a lot of ways. And Connor does too. And he's our second. And Gavin, like you said, he's trying to help in his own ways for being a 12-year-old. And so,
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure as it progresses and you as a family and being in the midst of all of this, everyone's feelings begin to get a little more exposed and the reality of things hit. But it probably can't hit as hard as it hits to someone like yourself, Marella, where everything is one way one day, feeling pretty much like a normal person with a good, work career and all, and then suddenly things are so different. It has the potential to make you feel isolated and alone. Have you had experiences like this? Like if Mark is at work and the kids aren't home? I mean, what goes through your mind?
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. The when the kids are doing their schoolwork, I'm sitting there by myself. When the kids go to their group, their Pathfinder class, or their youth night, I'm left by
Mhm.
myself. That's two nights a week that there's, yeah, absolutely, it gets really lonely.
Yeah, you're not going to sit down and read a book.
Right, because yeah, exactly, because I can't.
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly. Um, how has this, what was your communication like after this diagnosis? Because you all have a very strong faith relationship with God. Part of what drew me to the two of you, I failed to mention in the beginning, but I had written a book, which I still to this day, I don't know two other people that went through my book and scrutinized it and read it in the way that you did. And we was dealing with LGBT issues, and you wanted to raise your children in a godly way that with terms and with beliefs and everything that aligns, with scripture. Your trust in your faith is strong in God, and then something like this happens. I'm sure in everyone's life where tragedy hits, it's like it's like a firebomb from the enemy. What what thoughts begin to go through your mind, or what was your communication like suddenly with God?
well, I I mean, I'll be honest, it's been tough. I had a point there where I was terrified, like felt, is God really there? Does he really exist? The thought was horrible. Just because, if God doesn't exist, what does that mean for us? Well, that means nothing. That means that's it. There's nothing out there. There's nothing to,
Yeah.
after you die, that's it. And that's a terrifying thought. And those thoughts went through my mind. Fortunately, they were brief.
Hmm.
If you call, a couple of weeks of brief. Um,
Yeah. In the scheme of things, yeah.
yeah, yeah. But yeah,
You, we talked briefly the other day, as I was recognizing that I thought it would be of great value for you to come on the podcast. And I used kind of a weird analogy because you mentioned the fact that this was something like I didn't ask for this. Like, why is this happening? I didn't ask for this, and it's really setting up to shake your faith and make you feel very alone and very isolated. And I said, I have to stop and think about other scenarios in life, and one being for somebody that's LGBT that who's tried to follow their faith also, to stop and say, hey, I didn't ask for this. What am I supposed to do? And it really is, there are scenarios that come about that are really set to shake us. And I'm sure we all go back to the study of Job in the Bible, and to see how, he hung on when others around him even thought, yeah, why are you hanging on? Because this should never happen to anybody. Um,
Yeah,
so
I mean, our group that meets together on Saturday at our church, we have studied this. We started going from early. We're going through the Bible, and we studied Job. We're almost over with Job, and that, I mean, I go in there. Everybody is thinking about me when we when we go through this, and I know they are,
yeah,
even though
yeah,
they don't say it. Um, and I bring something up, and they're like, yeah, I was mentioning you, but I didn't want to say it, or thinking, but I don't want to say it. And I'm like,
sure.
it's okay, we can talk about it. But yeah, uh, I think of Job. My friends think of Job. It's nothing compared to what he went through. Nothing. But yeah, it's something I can relate to
Yeah.
for sure.
Um, what advice would you give to somebody who you see that's, they're kind of happy-go-lucky and going through life, um, and maybe taking it a bit for granted? What would you say to remind them of the proper perspective that they should have on life?
Whew. Um, each day matters. I that's
Yeah,
that's a tough question.
yeah. And yeah, I don't know that it's certainly not easy to say to someone how to stop, taking life for granted.
I
May-
my family, my obviously I have my immediate family with Mark and the kids, but my extended family with my sisters and my mom and their kids, uh it's really something that's brought us together. We've had our ups and downs like every family does.
Mhm.
Um, I have a fairly new um, brother-in-law who's writing a book and learning things about. He's not an Adventist, but we're trying to change that. No, but he's uh, he's learning a lot from. He calls me up frequently, and he said the thing that he says a lot is, "You taught me that," and I'm like, "Are you
Mhm.
kidding me? No, I didn't teach you anything." And but it's really brought all of us closer together. We don't take any day for granted, and we go and do things together. My sister and daughter and I are going next weekend to a what is it, a myofascial release thing that's nobody knows about, but just to do something to kind of help with this
Uh-huh.
situation and help them as
Nice.
well.
And let me ask you this, what advice would you have to somebody who has just received a diagnosis that shortens their lifespan, and all of the things that lay before them, their world changes. It kind of goes from light to dark.
Don't take anything for granted. I i have used this as much as I possibly can to reach others, to to talk to people. I've been praying more. I've been praying with people more,
Yeah.
and I that's not something that I did before. It's not something I liked. If you pray with people, it's very intimidating. But I've been doing that more when we go places, or when we, in public. I take somebody aside and say, as we're parting ways for the time being, and I'll pray with them. And what I'm sorry, what was the rest of the question?
Just about, what your advice would be to somebody who receives a bad diagnosis or a terminal diagnosis.
Um, look at, be close with people, care
Yes.
about people, pray about people. I don't, it's not about you. I mean, it kind of is because you're the one with the diagnosis,
Yeah.
but reach others as much as you can,
Mhm.
because life is short. You never know when something's going to come. And I want to see as many people in heaven as I can.
Amen. Something I've admired about this journey that you've had has been your frequent updates on Facebook. I see them and I read them, every word, and it helps me to know how to pray for you. It also, I believe, is an avenue in which it helps you to stay in touch with people. And I know that you probably even need assistance in making those posts because of the small print and not, maybe even being able to see it or read it very well. And that's where I think family members probably come in and are rather helpful at that time as well.
Well, they actually found a an app for me that
Oh,
um,
cool.
reads it for me, but it is difficult to write. There's actually an app that'll write it for me too, but then I have to figure out, I have to, read it over again and read it over again, because I got to make sure sometimes the app doesn't get the word right,
Yeah,
or um, you know, that sort of thing. But it's, yeah, I've tried to stay in connection with people. It's very uplifting to see what this is doing to other people. I've gotten messages from people I haven't seen in years,
yeah.
especially one who's we went to grade school together, and we haven't talked to each other in, I don't even know how long,
Mm.
maybe even since grade school. And she's connecting with me, and she's a teacher, so she sent me a bunch of letters from her kids, which was really sweet. She just, everything that we've just connected again, and it's just been positive, and such a positive experience in that way, that
Great.
I've been able to, to reach others that I never was able to do that before.
And what is your church family like during this time?
Um, oh, they've been incredible. Um, I don't know if you're me talking immediate church family, or because my church family is so big, not just the church we attend,
Yeah,
but
I think I recall, seeing messages showing up about the amount of food that was coming to your house, and that people were certainly pitching in. I hope they still are.
oh, well, my work family is fantastic, and they started, they started this, and they took me to my appointments when I wasn't sure if I could drive.
Mm.
They waited outside for me and took me back home. I mean, that's been fantastic,
Dedication.
and
Yeah.
dedication. And what was the other part of the question?
Yeah, just what church family had been like from a standpoint of support. Um, I think that it's so incredibly important to come around and be with people and to, a lot of times people have discussing difficulty discussing the obvious, but I think that you have made it an open door so that people are not uncomfortable and that they can come and talk with you and share with you and bring things to you without feeling, intimidated in any way.
And that's what I'm hoping for. I had a friend who went through cancer, and now is in remission, and she didn't tell anybody. I didn't know.
Mm,
And how lonely is that, to go through
yeah.
something like that alone? And for me, sharing has been easy. I haven't been, I don't mind. Mark and I went through something else where we were open with people, and we received such a blessing from others who came up to us and said, "Hey, I've been dealing with that too."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for us, we know, I mean, when it comes to brain cancer, not everybody's dealing with that, but we know that they're supporting us, and they want to be as much of a help as they can. And that's so valuable
Yeah.
to know. So it makes it easy to share what, hey, what was our last experiences with,
So
whatever.
I think that can I share, Mark, at all a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I have to say that there was transparency in this family already developed before this diagnosis for Marella. And I had attended church there in Washington here, I don't know, a couple of years ago or so. And Mark and Marella took to the platform and to share about the struggle that Mark had faced in the realm of pornography. And having left the world of eroticism myself, and for so many years, I knew what that separation and what that addiction and those kinds of things can do. And here you have a wife who was willing to go to the platform with you, who was supporting you, praying for you, not backstabbing you and not, proliferating a bunch of gossip about you, but seeing what she could do to help you because how much she loved you. And as a result of that, that even involved Mark beginning, which is so rare, a men's support group, sexual purity group within the church. And that's been a huge blessing. Even though I am at a great distance, it does my heart good to know that this is taking place. And I always advise for others in church groups. We often know about women's ministry who does all kinds of things, but lacking in so many churches is men's ministry. And so this is also what's needed. And I think that even at a time like this, the men's group can come together and pray for the circumstances of which Mark is in this relationship with his wife, and it being a diagnosis that is hard hitting, and it makes things rather tenuous. And it's so interesting to watch from afar, but to see both of you as you travel through this and know that how God will bless in both of your testimonies. And so, I would be interested, Mark, as to how all of this has affected you. So you have a wife you dearly love, and you have children that you dearly love, and you work. And so there has to be a lot on your mind all the time.
Yeah, it's, to put, most people now know a little bit more. It's becoming, even though she's still here, I call it a 1.5 parent. So I'm taking on extra duties that, and I feel bad for her because I know she loves she wants to help me, but there's times that
Yeah.
she can't. And so it does and we're working our way through it. We've had our crying sessions together, pray together with each other. And, I give her support and she gives me support the best way she can. And it's, I'm glad that I had the men's group too as well, having a place to talk to men, other guys,
Yeah.
and they're going through their own struggles as
Yeah.
well. And so we support each other. It's kind of morphed a little bit to a sexual purity and as well a little bit of a marriage um, counseling to each other a little
Mhm.
bit. So we pray for each other as well, with other guys that are going through their own different types of struggles.
Sure.
Um, but it's been really nice to have some place where I can go every couple of weeks and say, "Hey, I'm struggling with this," or "Here's what's going on," and and then they tell me about their stuff, and I pray for them, and we're going back and forth, and that's extremely helpful.
Yeah, because the enemy would use this against you because in the circumstances that you're in too, and I know that I have a colleague that says to me, I was baptized, Satan wasn't, and so he certainly goes about trying to remind us of our past or tempt us by our weak points. Um, so yeah, it's quite a course to navigate, and it's good that you can navigate it together.
Yeah, and I remember you had said something earlier, and Marilla had answered about faith as well. this is definitely test your faith
Yeah.
very much. And having the friends in the group, I people ask me how I'm doing on certain things, and I put it like this: logically, I believe in the Bible. I believe in everything in it. But do my emotions sometimes they
Hmm.
go back and forth, up and down. I haven't quite faced, the questions of doubt as much as I know that she has because her mind is in a different place than mine. But
Sure.
I, the logic helps knowing that I have faith there, and though my emotions go back and forth, um, I know God's shoulders are big enough to handle my questions and my doubts, or and my, you know, and He's there. He may not always answer in the way I would like, but then I get a phone call or I get somebody who sends a card to us, and I read that card to her, and it's uplifting, and that
Yeah.
helps along too.
Marella, what would you say has, through this experience, has surprised yourself the most about yourself, others, and God?
Well, I've become very emotional. That's
Mhm.
obnoxious.
You were strong. You are a strong woman. I know that you've been a strong woman. So to
Okay.
find yourself in this predicament of emotions is probably a little dismantling at times.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, what was the other questions?
What you find surprising about yourself, about others, and about God.
Um, about others, well, that's easy. They've just stepped up and just been there for us. Um, we have someone. She doesn't she doesn't attend our church anymore. I think she goes to the church next door, but she started a I don't want to call it a ministry, but she started getting people to send us cards,
Uh-huh.
and I didn't know that she was doing that for until recently. And we would get these cards all the time, and honestly, I've never been a card person. People send me a card and they sign their name to it and it goes right in the trash.
In the trash,
I'll be
like you
honest.
wasted $5.
Yeah, well, exactly. Why? Okay, whatever. But these cards I have on my um, sort of my mantle,
Hmm.
and I've kept every single one of them. Most people write a message in there, and those are the kind of cards I keep. If they've taken the time to write a message instead of
Yeah.
just signing their name.
And you can
You know,
reflect on them still
yeah,
while you're
I
around,
have,
trying to find things to do.
yeah, I have a someone who used to attend our church, but goes to another church, and she sends every week. She sends us a letter and a gift card for some
Oh,
food somewhere
that's
for
nice.
yeah, and every week you can count on it. And she's she's just been amazing. And she's someone we haven't seen in a long time because she has attended another church now. And it's just it's brought I feel like it's brought the churches together. Maybe not, maybe that's kind of speaking too highly of myself, but I mean, I get these cards from people from all around, from different churches. It's not just my
Oh,
church
cool.
taking interest in
Yes.
this. It's the churches all around our our area.
Yeah.
I get cards from other places. My bosses, my former bosses, my new the ones that I'm not working right now, but I still consider them my bosses.
Yes.
A couple of them I call Jefe because they're my um, bosses in Spanish. But anyway, they've been there for me. One of them works for the NAD, the North American Division,
Uh-huh.
and he's been praying for me every time they have a meeting there. Um,
Yeah. Awesome. That's wonderful.
it
And
will,
anything surprising that you have discovered about God in this?
Um, that's a loaded question.
I'm
Um,
sure there are highs and lows in that experience from day to day.
yeah, absolutely. Just God has been there. God has been there through other
Yeah.
people, through
He doesn't
people.
abandon.
I don't, I don't experience God, um, as far as He's speaking to me. I know people who hear the voice of God, and that's never been. My sister has said that I hear God's voice, and that's never been me.
Yeah.
And I think, why are you doing this for others, and why aren't you
Yeah.
speaking to
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
in that regard? But
Yes.
he shows me he's there in other ways.
Yeah. Different language. I understand. I can totally relate to what you're saying because when I'd get frustrated in life, sometimes I said, God is not someone you can see, touch, smell, hear. And sometimes when I need answers, it's just so frustrating. I just want to hear something.
Yeah,
And somehow God knows us individually, and He knows that's not the method in which He needs to reach us, and so He uses His ways and not ours.
Yeah,
right.
I have a short little version of that. I just the other day, I went to our church. I count money after we pick up offering, and I was leaving, and did something another errand, and as I was driving through this neighborhood, I was gonna ignore this estate sale sign, but something told me no. And so I turned around, went into the neighborhood, and I drive by the house and I'm thinking, I don't really see anything that attracts me. But something kept telling, no, you need to stop. And as I walked in onto the property, something just led me over to this one little section. And it was exactly what I'd been thinking about needing to buy to do a project. And instead of spending $60, $80 for something, I ended up spending like $9. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, in 2 weeks, when I take a little vacation, I was going to do this project. I'm like, there it was, just a small one, but it's just a tiny little, hey, here, I'm going to lead you to get you something that you need to do something else. And, for me, it was just a small little, here you go.
God is cool. He's very cool how He does that. Um, Is there anything in a final statement that you would like to leave with people, believers as well as those who have come into a situation that maybe they're questioning God due to some horrible thing that they've discovered about themselves?
Well, in one way, I would say don't take anything for granted. Um, don't fight with your kids. I mean, I say that, and I still fight with my kids. But you know, um, allow God to use you. Um, it's a hard question.
It
Um,
is. It is. Um, but I can't tell you how much it's meant to me to bring this before people, particularly those who are faced with frustration and challenges. And I know for women, it's probably far more than for men. Often women get a diagnosis of breast cancer. I know for men, there's often prostate cancer. But I think women overall have had to fight so many elements of disease. And I know this isn't, gender related as to who it can hit, but nonetheless, it is something that's in your pathway that is certainly there to test faith. And it's also been a test to those around you and to the church body. It's a call on them to be God, to be a representation of God. If somebody should want to reach out to you, is there a way that they can do so?
Mark.
Yeah, I will give Wayne an email that we can reach, that people want to reach out, and and contact, and then we can respond in whatever manner we see that is appropriate to communicate with them.
Great.
Um,
Yeah.
and
I mean, you can always go to my Facebook page too. It's a lot of the things I lock it up a lot, but a lot of the things I'm posting are public.
Great.
Um,
Yeah. So I will, after in the editing process, I will put Marella Rudebaugh's name, and you can contact her there on Facebook. And I also will provide the email address so that you can send her a note if you like. And, then you can go back and forth from there. And I know that great things can come of that. So communication is key. And to the viewers, never give up hope. And keep trusting in God. We know that God is fair, God is just. What happened in heaven was such an event, and that while there was such an atrocity that took place where Lucifer was wanting to overtake heaven, he was cast out with the angels, but he could have been zapped and eliminated right there, and we wouldn't be here. But in order for all this to play out, God has to demonstrate and show how evil the enemy is and why this just can't happen again. And so it's so important for you and I today to keep choosing Jesus over the evil that we see taking place in this world. And instead of blaming God for things, put the blame on the enemy who brought this about to begin with, because God only wants the very best for you and I. And it will come, and it's about to happen, because I don't think, as I watch the news, that this can go on so much longer, because everybody just seems to dislike everybody, and it's sad times for the planet. So
and
my heart
you
has
know,
been touched. Go ahead, Marilla.
sorry, something that you said reminded me um, that God has actually been speaking to me in the form of music. Anytime a lot of times when I'm thinking of something, a song comes to my head,
Oh, cool.
or I hear something on the
Yeah,
radio, and I only listen to Christian music, but some
yeah.
people don't.
There are
Anyway,
a lot of beautiful words in Christian songs. My drive to and from the studio is an hour and 15 minutes each way. So I have a lot of time to listen. And, even in days where where it's rough and this is a little out of character for me, in that I am most all of my relatives have deceased, except for I have a sister still living there in Washington. But there are days when you can feel particularly lonely, and there are certain songs that will come on that just spell it all out. I couldn't even write it myself, but it's good that we have music that will soothe us and redirect our attention to, again, the faithfulness and reliability of Jesus.
yeah, I would love to add one last, Ethan,
Sure, Mark.
is if someone, even if they don't know God as well as someone who is at church, or, those who are not at church, is to be honest with him, and
Yes.
and then be
Because
willing
he
to,
already knows you. He knows when
yeah,
you're
he
lying.
knows, yeah, it is to, and also surrender. I know that was in your book
Yeah.
that you had made a mention about, is that the people who had their lives changed
Yes.
were the ones that truly surrendered everything. And we're going through that very same process, even though we've been to church all
Right.
our lives, is we're learning too to, hey, we need to surrender everything, and no matter what it is, to him. And Psalms 23 has been a big one for me,
Yeah.
has really helped, you know, go through this process.
Right. Well, God bless you both. I'm going to stay in touch, and I always watch for your posts and updates on Facebook. And so I would like to just finish with saying a little prayer for you. Lord, I thank you so much for the transparency of Marella and of Mark also, Lord. I know that you're blessing this family, even though there are some tragic things at hand. You still can bring, even through the tragedy at times, the glimpse of God still being there and the hope for the future, a hope where we won't have to suffer from disease or from sadness or from tears, but that we will have new minds, new bodies, and to be able to live for eternity. And I believe that that time is rapidly approaching. So between now and that time, I just pray that, Lord, you will bless Mark and Marella and their family, keep them close, keep them trusting in Jesus, and to be constantly hopeful and claiming your promises, Lord, which we are grateful for. So we leave all this in your care, and we pray it in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
Amen.
If you've appreciated what you have seen today, be sure and put a like below and subscribe to the podcast, and to share this podcast with your friends. And until next week, take care. God bless.